All right, we are super excited to host this panel today on how workforce development is empowering possibilities for young people in the future of work. We have a really exciting panelist. This is Karin Norington-Reaves, who's the CEO of the Chicago Cook County Workforce Partnership, the largest county workforce agency in the country, and real innovator in the space and personal coach to us on many, many levels. And also Omowale Casselle, who's director and co-founder of the Pritzker Tech Talent Labs and Discovery Partners Institute, University of Illinois. And David Miyashiro, who's the superintendent of Cajon Valley Public Schools, and Ed Hidalgo, who's the chief innovation officer and chief engagement officer at Cajon Valley Public Schools as well. Two incredible laboratories for innovation here in San Diego. And I'm Mike Marriner. I'm co-founder, president of Roadtrip Nation. And the spirit of what we're talking about today is lessons for how, this group of leaders kind of got through the pandemic. And I think everyone, if there's one lesson that we all learned is, the days of putting downloadable PDFs and throwing information, spaghetti on a board and thinking that youth are really going to engage with that experience is kind of over. And a lot of the learnings that, we've been, in full disclosure, Roadtrip Nation partners with both Chicago, Cook County, and also with Cajon Valley, all around developing storytelling assets to help engage youth and give them a better sense of possible pathways for their future. And a little bit about Roadtrip Nation. So we're a nonprofit based in California. We're part of the Strata Education Network. We're about 85 employees, and we're basically broken down to two primary components. One part of what we do is the media side of Roadtrip Nation. So we have an annual series on PBS every year in 60 million households where we put students on and learners on road trips to identify people and career pathways they might be interested in. But the career development side of Roadtrip Nation is really focused on an archive of over 9,000 video assets. We knew that we were never going to put every youth in America on a motorhome to go find their roads in life, especially during a pandemic. So because we've been so intentional with the content development over time, the database is our way of bringing those content stories to more youth all across the country. And when the pandemic hit, our fleet of 6 motorhomes couldn't hit the road. And it's kind of a weird time to be launching road trips during a global pandemic. So as a nonprofit, we were trying to figure out how can Roadtrip Nation be of highest and best use in this moment. And that's when we connected with Karin in Chicago. We had just interviewed her on a recent road trip focused on opportunity youth. And the pandemic, it was March 2020. The pandemic was coming on pretty strong. And I remember Karin saying that she had no youth workforce development hub in Chicago, and that a lot of the same resources that she was sharing online for adults had to also be used for youth. And so since everything went virtual really quickly, she was like, I need help developing potentially Chicago's first ever youth workforce development portal. And Roadtrip Nation had never done anything like that before. We were used to launching road trips with motorhomes and doing shows on PBS, and we said, you know what, let's do this. We have some extra capacity at Roadtrip, so we really partnered with her and co-designed for her an entirely new arm of our nonprofit, and launched it this past spring. And it's been, we'll talk about it a little bit, but now we have the motorhome driving out there in 2 weeks, we have the mayor behind it, and it's become this whole really exciting thing. And then in Cajon Valley, we now have our first ever K-12 school district that now is kind of modeling what we've done in Chicago, but on a K-12 school district level. So to see, can a lot of the same learnings that we've seen in Chicago also parlay with their work in San Diego. So, first off, we'd like to show you a little bit about that hub that we launched in Chicago, just seeing kind of visual of it. So again, this was at the nature of our work is really all about storytelling, and can we leverage the power of human-centered storytelling to help drive better engagement among youth. So on the hub, we had stories of people from workforce pathways right in the local Chicago area. We curated insights around resilience and how people got through difficult moments along their career paths. Our team also produced over 200 different virtual day-in-the-life videos. We knew that when the pandemic hit that work-based learning was really hard to come by, so how can we help youth get immersed in virtual day-in-life experiences right away. We also centered the work on a lot of incredible nonprofits that Karin was already funding and working with in the local area to make sure that we were amplifying their reskilling and upskilling opportunities. And then finally, all the road trip projects we've done focused on with the former First Lady Michelle Obama and others. And then the last thing I'll just end on is on Monday, we've also created a curriculum where it's a 5-lesson program where any youth can come and build their own local virtual road trip projects and go out and interview people in careers that they might be interested in. It can be done through Zoom, it can be done through Microsoft Teams. And just on Monday, we had a team of students from Cajon Valley who were here interviewing conference attendees. So anyone in the audience that shared your story, just want to thank you for that. The students were incredible, and if ever demonstrates the power of just real human-centered storytelling and powerful vulnerability to help more deeply engage youth, that was a pretty darn good example. So we're gonna screen this video tonight at the reception, but we're gonna give you a little sneak peek now, and then we'll dive into the panel conversation. Can we rewind it? This is too good, the first part. Okay. We can play it at the end too. Do you guys need a second to figure out the audio? One of the cool things too, just while they're getting that set up, is one of the things that David and Ed always talk about is the importance of parent and family engagement as well. So we're working on these models where the students actually talk to their parents about their career paths, because what we find is a lot of times when these students are interviewing people in these careers, they're like, wow, a lot of this stuff is questions I've never even asked my family about. And so we're working on this new model where parents can actually talk to their kids about their career journeys. And even out in front of the motorhome on Monday, you had a lot of the parents from the students were like tailgating in like their chairs and like watching the students. It was really, really cool, taking photos and stuff. So, all right, here we're gonna play the video now.
Hi, my name is Berlin Dixon. I am 13 years old.
My name is Matthias Ward. I'm 15.
My name is Mauricio Magdaleno. I'm entering the 8th grade.
My name is Daniel Torres. I go to Bostonia Language Academy.
My name is Edwin Borbonio. I'm going into 8th grade.
My name is Megan Chavez.
My name is Emily, and I am an 8th grader.
We're at the ASU+GSV conference. So I'm about to interview somebody. I'm really excited. I have never done this before, so I am a little bit nervous. I don't think I've ever done an interview before. Yeah, it's pretty new to me.
It's kind of nerve-wracking, but I'm gonna do it with my brother. That's why.
I'm feeling pretty nervous about it.
I feel a little bit nervous.
I'm kind of nervous and kind of excited, but I think it's gonna be fun. So whenever you had to go to like big meetings, like maybe something like today, were you ever like nervous?
Yeah, I'm always nervous. Always nervous. One of the ways that I've been able to calm down a little bit is to be really prepared. Like for me now, being nervous is so important, because if I'm nervous, it means I care. If I'm nervous, it means I'm ready. If I'm nervous, it means I'm alert. I think people should feel nervous. It's really about how you figure out how to respond to that that's important.
During the interview, when I was asking questions, my nervousness went down a lot.
When you start, you're kind of like nervous, what do I say? But once you're in it, you're not nervous no more.
I'm really excited for today. I can't wait to meet so many new leaders, because I know that I personally have so many different passions. It's kind of hard to balance everything. So I want to see how they did that.
I'm a little indecisive of what I want to do. It could be useful to have some tips from people that are already successful in life.
What do you think you want to do?
I don't really have a career path set yet. I'm still thinking about it.
Yes, I think it is really natural and actually like very healthy to not have a solid idea of what you want your career path to be, when you're in middle school or even high school.
Your number one job right now is to be good at school and to try to learn about what you want to be good at eventually, right? As you get older, like a lot of pressure will start to be placed on you to say, hey, what are you going to pick? What are you going to do? What college are you going to go to? What's your major going to be? Probably most people don't figure out what they want to do really until they're probably in their 30s or 40s, if they're lucky.
I didn't even know that my job existed when I was in college, in law school, or looking for a job. So I would say, don't feel the pressure to have all the answers when you're 14, 15, 16. There's plenty of time to try out different things.
Both my parents were educators, but when I was in 8th grade, I knew the one thing I didn't want to do was be an educator. And then I spent my entire life as an educator. So I guess the lesson there is sometimes you don't really know what you want to do until you actually start to do it.
I think the interview went really well. When she told me it was fine not having it figured out, it really dropped my stress level about it.
It definitely made me feel more reassured because I think I'm still kind of I don't know if this is gonna work out. So it was reassuring. I was okay, maybe it's not as bad as I thought.
Don't feel pressure to, have it all figured out before you graduate high school, even college if you go. You don't have to have everything, all planned out. So what is one piece of advice you could leave me with for the upcoming years into 8th grade and high school?
One piece of advice that I have is, don't ever let anyone else define you. The world will always have its own opinion about what's expected of you. But ultimately, a lot of what you're trying to do is figure out what motivates you in life. What's exciting for you? And so as you're thinking about your own career, you define Daniel, don't let anybody else do it for you.
That was really helpful, actually. That helped me a lot. I feel really good. That was a really fun interview. I learned a lot from him. I feel like I'm already on my way to be someone successful.
I want to be an engineer, so what are the steps of looking and getting into that kind of thing?
Do you tinker? Do you take things apart, put them together?
Yeah.
At home? Like what?
We have lawnmowers at my house. I take them apart, fix them, clean them.
Hang on, you can take a lawnmower apart? That's pretty amazing, man. The fact that you can take a lawnmower apart and pull that together is a fantastic way to begin, right? But nurture that, nourish that, see where you can go with that. For all you know, you'll start taking cars apart.
Yeah. Well, I just got out of the interview. I think it went really well and gave me a lot of insight on engineering and what I want to do with my life. The experience was truly amazing. Made me feel like I'm actually getting somewhere.
All right, so let's just take a little nod from that. And do you guys mind telling us a little bit about your personal journeys and kind of how you found your way to this work? And I know it's not so tactical of a question, but Karin, do you want to start? I know we've interviewed you before, so it might be doing it over again. But
so who wants to follow that? That was amazing. My path is really circuitous to where I am and what I do now. I will say it all started with me stomping my foot at the age of 3 and talking back to my mother. And at that time, she said to me, "You always have to have the last word. You should be a judge." And I said, "What does a judge do?" And she said, "We have to be a lawyer first, but a judge resolves disputes between people." And she explained that lawyers help people solve problems and defend them or represent them. And so I always wanted to be a lawyer, and that's what I wound up doing. Everything in my life was geared towards me being a lawyer. And I did, in the public sector, and then I wound up coming down this path into workforce development. Who knew? And I've been leading this for 10 years now. So it is my life's passion and it's the best job that I never knew I wanted.
For me, I used to take apart a lot of things as a kid. I used to take apart VCRs, camcorders. I don't actually know why I'm still alive today because these were very expensive electronics. But my mother was very patient with me. She allowed me to have that space because as a kid, as you take things apart, they don't actually go back together appropriately. So I had just a bin of things that just was broken and had been deconstructed. But over time, I was able to pursue that passion in engineering. So I've got 2 degrees. I've got an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering as well as a graduate degree in mechanical engineering. And I knew I wanted to be in the automotive industry, but what I didn't really realize is that path of going through engineering made me a good problem solver. And I ended up wanting to apply that to more people, getting into the technology industry. And so that's really how I find myself in this role, which is to how do we get more people, especially those who are Black, brown, and female, into the technology industry, and it's something that's super, super exciting for me.
I started out as a journalism broadcast theater major, and then trying out for different roles in the plays and the musicals at Cal State Long Beach. People told me, there's not going to be enough roles for Asians, you should probably quit. And so I did, and went to become a teacher because my mom was a teacher, and that's all I knew above that. And got in trouble as a teacher, as a principal, and assistant superintendent because I wanted to change things and fix things and break things. And principals don't like teachers that want to fix things and change things and break things. But now as a superintendent, we get to fix things, change things, and break things, so. Yeah.
I wasn't really very good at school, and so I never really had a lot of aspirations for my future possible self. I always used to ask myself, I wonder who'll ever hire me because I'm so bad at school, actually. But as I reflect back on my childhood, there were a lot of clues to my future possible self that really not a lot of folks were picking up. And so I fell into my career path, and which really started human resources and talent acquisition. I love people. Loved working with people, always have loved working with human beings and helping them achieve their best possible selves. So, so my role now, my goal, I get to do that for kids. I get to see their future possible selves and get to capture the clues that they're giving us about who they are currently and how that can lead to who they might want to become in the future.
Can you and David talk a little about the pandemic? And I know your title is Chief Innovation and Engagement Officer, which I think is just pretty cool for a district to have a title like that. I think kudos to David for that. But can you talk a little bit about that during the pandemic? Kids go virtual. How did you keep them, how did you keep it together and keep your students captivated and engaged? And
when we closed, we had been a one-to-one district with computers and technology and Wi-Fi for 7 years, since 2014. So our kids took their Chromebooks home. They were able to log in. We didn't have any issues with access or engagement with curriculum because they've been doing that in their schools. But when we realized that the pandemic was going to go on for a while, and we met weekly with our parents online and started to hear them cry and say, we don't know what to do. We need to go to work. Peter Kallstrom, CEO of the Workforce Partnership, in addition to labor market research, they also do research on how do we support the economy. One of the things we realized during the pandemic everywhere is the lack of high-quality childcare and support, and the need for the school system as a custodial role to support parents, working parents. And so we opened our schools in April of 2020 for essential workers, their children, and then by summer of 2020 had all schools open because we realized that not only for the well-being of the children, but so that our parents can go do the essential work they needed to do was important. And so digital, we were fine, but what do you think, Ed?
Well, I think opening the schools, practicing, how to open the school safely was really important, going through that process, and then inviting our teachers and principals and admins in a way to come back and begin that practice and do it safely, and then hearing from our families as well, what they wanted. So how many parent sessions did we have during that time to hear the voice of our families? So huge kudos to our principals that are here because they led so many parent sessions. Principals, APs, they made it possible.
Can you talk a little about Camp Cajon? I love this. This is like one of my favorite things. Just a quick little plug.
Yeah, so in the parent town halls, we asked them, we got all the stimulus money. We're going to plan the best summer ever. What would that look like for you? And so parents said, well, we want to do field trips and outdoor immersion. I want my child to go back to the orchestra and the band. My child likes theater. And so our principals and teachers created the most amazing menu of opportunities for kids to choose from so that they'd be excited to get out and go to summer camp. And then we wrapped around some academics around it. But what we found is kids and teachers really like that model of school. And so I think we're going to try to make Camp Cajon normal school as we look to the future. Yeah.
Camp Cajon, it's so cool. If you can look at the videos on YouTube. And then Karin, one of the things I've loved working with you in Chicago is just I feel like you're a professional silo buster. You're constantly trying to bring people together, working with the public library system, working with the public schools. You're somehow connecting the county and the mayor and balancing the both together. How did you do that during the pandemic? And I know there's a method behind it, in the spirit of engagement, but how did you do that? Or how do you do that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a method. It is a little bit of insanity and just a belief that we do better and go further if we work together. And so the way our system works is we were spun out of city, county government, as well as a small nonprofit. We were stood up 9 years ago, and we're a nonprofit, but we actually manage all of the federal workforce dollars for the city and the county. So we have to come up with programming that aligns with the federal guidelines and rules, but we also, in the past 9 years, have been able to raise about $128 million on our own to create our own initiatives that help to supplement and support the federally funded initiatives. So we have a lot more we have a wider berth. We can have flexibility. So we really have worked to make sure that our work goes across both sides of the house. So for us, the city and the county are actually in the same building. The seat of power in the city of Chicago is on the 5th floor on either side. And our job is to make sure that everybody who reports into the 5th floor knows what the workforce system is and does, and that we actually work together. So Chicago Public Schools, we've trained all of the career coaches and career counselors to make sure that they understand what all the resources are that are available. We've trained all of the librarians in the public libraries, because the single greatest reason people go to the library is to what? Use the computer, not to get out a book, but to use the computer. And what do they use the computer for? To search for jobs, because they don't have computers at home. So we trained all the librarians on all the resources that were available. Once we stood up the website, the web portal, when did we stand up? In July, last July. So once we stood that up, we then got together all of these different, siloed groups, like the Department of Family and Support Services, the Department on Aging. We got them all together and trained them on all the resources that are captured within that portal, so that we were able to get that out more broadly to all of the kids who were working, going to remote school. We did not have a Camp Cajon, but I'm going to talk to you because I think maybe we can, look, I think there's something we can do here. But so all of our kids were at home, and so we also worked with you all on the Roadtrip Nation Experience, which is the 5-week informational interviewing curriculum. And so we actually had teachers and career coaches, and we also pushed it out through all of our community-based organizations that were youth-facing, so that they got trained on it and stayed in contact with their youth and got their youth to actually apply those skills. We then took some CARES Act funding and gave kids stipends for doing it. So for the older youth, it was a nice little motivation to build in this stipend to have them do something that was ultimately beneficial for them.
That's something that we've seen just working with you, is like how central the workforce agency can be in these regions as like convener across multiple things. I know Peter's here from San Diego, and Earl, who ran the workforce board in Pittsburgh, but just like what an interesting place workforce boards sit at, especially right now, post late pandemic, where like recovery, people are trying to figure out, and the landscape's completely changed, like students come to us all the time, like if I thought I kind of had it figured out before the pandemic, now I have completely no idea, and so one of, in Omowale, like where you said at University of Illinois, the Pritzker Tech Talent Labs, like obviously like one pathway leading the recovery is like tech, IT, like these are jobs that, even through recessions, like never really go away. Like, can you tell us a little bit about your work and around kind of the repairing and the importance of tech in that and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I'd say that at University of Illinois, what we're really focused on is that historically, the 4-year degree, undergraduate, 2-year degree as graduate has been, something that has been very standard, right? Call it the high school to career pathway that many, many people have been on. And in many ways, that's been a great branding exercise for colleges and universities that have been around for 100+ years. Not everyone finds success in that pathway. And so what we're trying to do really is figure out, can we disrupt that 4-year degree? Can we disrupt that graduate program to get more people into the technology workspace through a skills-based focus that allows us to understand what is needed from the marketplace back. What are employers actually saying they need to fill these roles? And so one of the things that I think is going to be very important in this is that we have to de-risk this for the student, right? The person that is going through and saying, if I'm going to trade off between going through the University of Illinois versus a boot camp or a credentialing program, how do we make that on par with a similar program that's at a 4-year college or university? Because if we make it, sort of like a sub-tier of education or something that people are going to view as less than, especially when you think about the target populations that we want to service, which is Black, brown, and female, we don't want to create a permanent underclass in our work. We want to have something that's as good, if not better, because if you think about the explosion of costs within the 4-year colleges and universities, how are people going to actually afford to be able to not not just go and get these diplomas, but actually have a lifestyle that you can actually afford to do the things that you want to do. And so that's really what our work is focused around, is I would say disrupting the four-year college degree, as well as getting more people. Our goal is 7,000 annually by year 10, and 40% of those need to be Black, brown, or female.
You do a lot of that around DEI and tech in Chicago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of portfolios of work, and one is in information technology because it's one of the sectors that helps to fuel the local economy. And so we're partnering with a group called PCs for People. They were coming in and setting up shop. They actually have been in the Midwest for some time, but not in Chicago. And what they do is they take computers donated from different corporations, they refurbish them, and then they give them at very, very low cost to people who are living in poverty. And when I say low cost, it's between $0 and $150. They also set up a social enterprise where they then repair computers. And so they're coming into the community, and what I said to them was, this is great. We can tap into the population of folks who receive our services, but how can we turn this into a workforce development initiative? So what we worked out with them is that they will now train a cohort, and we will do at least four cohorts a year. We'll do more if we can do more. And they will train these folks in, they will get an A+ certification, so maintenance, refurbishing, and repair of computers. And then those folks become a talent pipeline that we then help get placed within the local economy in tech positions. We also have another initiative called Chicago Codes, which is focused specifically on the untapped potential and the untapped talent on the south and west sides of Chicago, which are primarily Black and brown people. And as we know, the pandemic has laid bare inequities that we all already knew existed, but it's actually made them even worse. And so Chicago Codes is focused on recruiting individuals from Black and brown communities and getting them trained, and we put them through a boot camp program and get them trained for positions within the tech field. It is phenomenal to hear people stand up. We do a graduation. It is a big deal. But to hear them say, when they walked in, they thought they were just in a room of losers like themselves. And to hear them at the end say, I'm not a loser, nobody here is a loser, and oh, by the way, we just built this really cool app and it's ready to go to market, right? It is life-changing for them, for people to believe in themselves when nobody else believed in them before, and for them to actually have a capstone project that results in an app that is marketable is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
That sounds like a nonprofit you did before Pritzker Labs, right? Weren't you doing?
Yeah, so I mean, like one of the things that I was involved in before is teaching kids how to code. So I think that you can start coding at a very young age. So teaching kids how to code as young as 4 years old, starting off on a visual programming language called Scratch, building into Roblox, which is based on Lua, JavaScript, Python. It's just amazing. I really like what you said about the perception is often where the disconnect or the gap is, not in terms of people's actual ability, because when you put someone in a room and you put them in front of a screen and you give them, sort of like the knowledge for how do you code, how do you understand the logic of how do you build with technology. As long as you never tell a kid they can't do something, they often don't believe that they can do something. But if you give them that, just like that little window that you are capable and that you can be in this technology industry, it's really amazing what you can see. And so, yeah.
David's smiling, so Ed.
You should share the Think of It story and the adults, then the kids.
I mean, there's so many stories from the Think of It lab around, obviously, young people being able to come in and work on Arduinos and code, and they had no front loading to, using the Arduino software. And in 4 hours, they could create a robotic creation. They could run 13 lines of code. They could make servos work, and they built their own robotic creations. And a lot of the adults didn't think that the students could do it, so they're already canceling out the students' possible selves before they ever given them a shot to do it, right? So 15,000 kids come through this lab, and they say this is the best day of of my life, better than a birthday party. I want to work here one day I want to be a software engineer. And then the reality was the vast majority of those students that came to that lab had no idea. They thought they were going to Qualcomm Stadium, right? It's the funny in the story, but it's not funny at all because they had no idea that the world's largest fabless semiconductor company was 20 minutes from their own backyards. And here we are trying to recruit talent from all over the world because we need more engineers. So as I think about your conversations, that's our job is to create those types of experiences for all students, not just in the STEM fields, but in all the fields, right? So if we want students to have a dream to be a park naturalist, well, we should help them achieve that goal. There's great future possible selves in a whole kaleidoscope of careers, not just the STEM careers that so often get front and center or on the news, because we know business needs a lot of them, right? We do, we know. There's such incredible demand for STEM professionals. But there are so many young people that feel the pressure to go into a STEM field when it's not the field they're supposed to be in. That's not where their calling is. So we put them on a path to go into these areas only to fall out later on and have to go through the whole process over and over again. What if we started earlier to identify those talents to help young people really start to begin to see and connect with the people who are in the fields that are most aligned to who they are?
Can we talk a little about that? So Roadtrip is part of the Strata Education Network, and the 3 impact pillars are completion, value, and purpose, which I think is really cool because you can have completion and value, but if you have no purpose, purpose is a driver of completion and value. And so I think it's easy, a lot of people miss that. They're like, oh, STEM, but what if that's not the right fit, So I know you guys done a lot of stuff around World of Work and, youth media making, and can you talk a little bit about the Cajon Valley model around workforce and career pathways?
Well, all the work that we start with is with the human. We start with building vocational identity. We start with the individual. We use vocational psychology. We build on strengths, interests, and workplace values. We understand the individual, the human. Who are you? And from a very early age, children are giving us clues to who they are. And so we do use a vocational typology. It's called the RIASEC. It's Holland's model. It's the framework of interest. It's the RIASEC. And we invite students to step into hands-on experiences to begin to self-report their own interests and build a voice, invited to have choice around their interest themes over time. It's not deterministic. We don't bake kids or track kids into different pathways. We allow them to have the voice to say, I am feeling very enterprising, or I'm feeling very artistic, or I'm feeling realistic. And then our beautiful, amazing administrators and teachers and parents provide their children exposure and experiences based on those interests to keep them from foreclosing too early and saying, that's not for me. The sooner that we can bring a child into this process of having the voice around who they are and who they might want to become, that's based on research, the sooner they can start developing a vision of their future possible selves, which I believe will lead to purpose, motivation, engagement, and that's what we know about interests. Interests drive these elements of motivation, vigor, and persistence. But you have to have a conversation with students about that language first. And that's what Dr. Miyashiro and the staff and our board have allowed us to do, which is very cutting edge.
So that piece is what's missing for all the people that we wind up seeing in the workforce system. We get the folks who did not get that, right? And it winds up that this system is now held accountable for meeting everybody where they are and getting them to a career and getting them connected to employment. And so we spend in this country hundreds of millions of dollars on what they call soft skills training. We are spending time teaching people what they should have gotten in preschool, what they should have gotten in kindergarten, what they should have gotten at home, what they should have learned out in the world, and we're expected to deal with the result of failing systems and multiple systems. It's not necessarily an educational system that's failed them. It's the social safety net. It's all of these things that have failed. And what I tell people is that in workforce development, this is not about social services. This is about economic empowerment. And it is about creating within people a sense of self and a sense of purpose and helping them understand what their gifts and skills and talents are, and then teaching them how to monetize those and survive in this economy. But if they don't have economic power, then they have no voice. Then they wind up living in the communities where there's no paved street, where there's poor service, right? Because they don't have a voice. And it is just a shame that we have all these kids who kind of don't go through the funnel, right? They never make it through. And then they wind up being these struggling adults. So if we could all work together, you would put us out of work, and I'd gladly be out of work, right?
Our job is to put Peter Kallstrom out of work.
Absolutely, and he is the best.
He loves it.
He is absolutely amazing. I'm so happy to see my friend here. But that is the thing, like put us out of a job, and then I can go back to my first job, which was what? Being a teacher.
Is there a chance is there like an opportunity right now for redesign? Like, did the pandemic, like, do the Noah's Ark moment, flood the earth, and now it's like, is there a moment to like think about de-siloizing, coming together around what's best for youth and learners and like reshape it, Like, is there a possibility?
For the first time in my career, money's not an obstacle. We got so many billions of dollars given to us for redesign and extending learning and providing amazing opportunities for kids. So Camp Cajon is our opportunity to say, yeah, let's design around interest. And I love that you're teaching our kids how to have these conversations in our Meet Pros. Watching them, those are our kids. That's amazing. And so quickly, I had a mentorship 25 years too late on my first cruise. When I was a kid, the closest I got was watching Love Boat. But I went into the theater and all the performers were Asian. My professor lied to me. I could have worked on a cruise ship and been an Asian Michael Jackson. But it wasn't available to me because I didn't have the mentorship or the conversations, and now that you're helping our kids.
That's good for the world, though, because we need you at the head of the school district. Yeah. Sorry.
I hear a post-retirement career coming.
Everyone can define their own roads except for David. He's got to stay ahead of the school district. All right, let's, one more final question here, and then they always say that crisis is the mother of invention. Is there something that you all learned through the pandemic that maybe helped you through the pandemic, but that you think could be longer lasting, more than just a pandemic survival strategy, but a real learning that maybe people can take with them?
I could start. I think that there's something that I hope will be durable from the pandemic, which is, south and the west side of Chicago, they did not get in trouble in the last 18 months. That has been like that for decades and decades of historic uninvestment, disinvestment, and all these things. And so, after the murder of George Floyd, people paid attention more. And I hope that we don't lose that as we get further distance between that event, because like Karin said, it's about economic development. It's about having a homegrown talent that you invest in and how you make, these cities and these municipalities around the globe to be best in class. And that's based on people. That's based on humans. And I think that as we've been forced to see each other on little screens over the last, 18 months, I hope that we don't forget that, the fabric of our nation is based on people. And when everyone isn't doing well, then no one's doing well. It doesn't matter how we're living. It doesn't matter, that the houses and the cars that some of us say we're to be privileged for. If we don't figure out how to help everyone, what good are we as a country?
I think for us, we thought we were an education organization, but we realized we are a public service organization. And public service starts with asking the people you're serving, how do you want and need to be served? And we've been doing that with our parents. We should have started a long time ago, but we'll never stop doing that.
Human-centered design is the thing that we are really focused on out of this pandemic, is putting people first and making sure that everything we do is responsive to their needs and recognizing the humanity in us all.
Ed, any last kernels?
I think everyone should just marinate on what's been shared by the others.
Agreed. Well, thanks everyone and we have 30 seconds. If anyone has any burning question out there, open it up.
We're 30 over.
I think we're.
Oh, we're 30 over.
Wrong direction.
Never mind, 30 over. Okay, never mind. Thanks everyone.